Welcome to my 207th video on my work with OO gauge. This part will just be basically a short follow-up to my previous video about converting a mainline Jubilee class loco to run on my Hornby 003 rail tabletop railway. When I finally got the Jubilee St. Vincent running 3-rail, it had difficulty pulling 00 LMS corridor coaches, getting a lot of wheel slip going round the curves, even when I oiled the axles of the coaches. Those coaches are heavy, and their axle system is pretty poor, creating a lot of friction. So I thought that I'd just try to fix up some coaches that would be a bit easier to pull to go with the Jubilee. I figured that the Jubilee really shouldn't have much problem pulling plastic coaches with pinpoint axle bearings, although there would still be the issue of the tight 00 standard curves, which are the same radius 15 inches as modern first radius curves, which are generally not recommended for most modern rolling stock. The other issue was that to couple to the Jubilee, which was using a repainted 008F tender, a simplex coupling would be required on the lead coach. I have quite a lot of LMS coaches since I specialize in modelling pre-war LMS operations, but many, perhaps most of my corridor coaches are of the older Hornby type, with tension lock couplings moulded right into the body of the bogies. With those, there's really no easy way of changing the couplings, or indeed of replacing them if they get broken. I finally settled on using these two mainline coaches, mainline brand that is, since they had couplings that could easily be changed. In fact, when I took them out of their boxes, I found that the brake coach had been fitted with a caddy coupling on the back. That's the one at the top here at the back left. You can see it's got a caddy coupling on. This is how the couplings were fitted onto the mainline coaches, just one screw holding the coupling in place, with two pins fitting into the holes in the coupling to keep it aligned. I undid the screw and removed the tension lock coupling from the front of the composite coach. The coupling went into my spares box to be reused in future. This is the back of a rusty old Trix AC loco that I picked up, more with the idea of using it for spares than anything else. I figured that the simplex coupling here would fit nicely onto the coach. I undid the screw and removed the coupling from the Trix loco. It was pretty rusty. I tried to clean it up a bit, but the rust didn't come off easily, and I didn't worry too much about it. I screwed the simplex coupling in place on the coach bogie. This is a bit of a bodge, as it won't have controlled rotation from side to side, as simplex couplings are supposed to, but I wasn't too concerned about that. I coupled the two mainline coaches up to the Jubilee loco and gave them a run. So, given that this mainline Jubilee that I converted for 3-rail running had real trouble pulling the old 00 LMS mainline coaches, just because they were so heavy and had such poor bearings, they created a lot of resistance, and he's not a heavy engine like the old 00 engines. So I wondered how he'd work with a couple of modern coaches, so I've fixed up these mainline coaches by putting a simplex coupling on the front of the front one, and see how these go. I won't guarantee. These are true scale, so I was quite worried whether they'd even manage to get through the tunnel and things. And indeed, when I first railed them up, I actually railed them up on the inner line there, and when I brought them round that, I railed them up sort of back there, and when I brought them back there, I actually had to move the engine shed over a bit so they could get round that corner, because they're longer than any of the 00 coaches. They made the 00 coaches quite a bit shorter so they could get round the tight 00 curves with less of a problem. Those actually, the LMS ones I was running first, are about the longest 00 coaches you can get. The suburban ones are even shorter, whereas they're actually fairly short coaches in real life. They're 57-foot LMS coaches, so that was about the shortest commonly used bogie length for bogie coaches, but it's still true scale 57-foot still makes them, OO gauge still makes them longer than any of the 00 coaches. But they do just manage to slip through the, I didn't make any further modifications to the tunnel. Is he getting wheel slip there? Yeah, maybe a bit still, but nowhere near as much as with. He's still maybe getting a bit of wheel slip round the corners, but nowhere near. And we're running at what, 37%, something like that power. So he certainly gets on better with these. I think you can duly say that he gets on better with these than he does with the 00 coaches, probably not surprisingly. He's just not, an old die-cast 00 engine really equipped to pull those old 00 coaches, but still. So there we are. That's given him a train, a little train. It's only 2 coaches, true, but that's giving him a little train that he can actually manage to pull without wheel slip. Pretty much, well, almost without wheel slip anyway. Yeah, much worse. He pulls away with those quite well. He doesn't have a lot of trouble with those. I also had this Wren Pullman coach, which I thought might mix in quite nicely. Here's the other side of the Wren Pullman coach. This came fitted with simplex couplings. It also had insulated wheels, making it suitable for 2-rail running, which is what Wren rolling stock is always intended for. So I figured I could couple the Wren coach up between the Jubilee's tender and the mainline composite coach and see how the Jubilee would manage with the 3 coaches on the 00 track. I'd had a Woodland Scenics tree building kit hanging around for ages, so I thought I'd use that to make a tree to put into the gap on the turntable shelf, at least pro tem. I bent up one of the tree armatures from the kit. This is the kit I'm talking about, a large blister pack containing a bunch of plastic tree armatures which come flat, bags of clump foliage and a jar of glue. Here you can see the foliage and the glue that came with the kit, and also the instructions. Here's a close-up of the instructions. I decided to try the technique at bottom left under 4 as or, oo, o odder, that is, or in 4 different languages. This turned out to be a mistake. It didn't help that when I opened the pot of glue that came in the kit, the brush that was supposed to be attached to the lid was totally broken. This is how it came when I first unscrewed the lid and lifted it. The other problem I had, using the 4-or technique, was that the Hob-e-Tac glue provided was really terrific at sticking the foliage to my fingers, not at all so effective in sticking the foliage to the plastic tree arms. So I ended up with much more foliage stuck to my hands than to the tree. Would have been better to have stuck to the first technique under 4, shredding the foliage into some sort of tray, then painting glue onto the plastic armature and just dipping it into the shredded foliage, keeping your fingers away from the glue entirely. Because if you try to hand stick the foliage onto the armature with that glue, you're going to end up with foliage stuck all over your hand, at least I did. Anyway, I did manage to sort of make a tree, and here it is on the shelf. You can still see some white glue there, but I think that will probably dry colourless, at least I hope so. So now to finish, some running with the Wren Pullman and the mainline coaches behind the converted Jubilee. So now I've added this Wren Pullman coach to the mix. I'm not sure as this is wise really, but still, he did actually come with simplex couplings. He could be run 2-rail or 3-rail. And he's got pinpoint bearings, so he shouldn't impose a lot of resistance. And he will get through the tunnel, I think. Yes, just about. But predictably we are getting a bit of wheel spin now, because we're pulling 3 coaches and this guy was having enough trouble with 2. They slow down round the bends. Because these are, let's remember, these are what would be called first radius curves on a modern layout. They're 15-inch radius curves, so they're tight. So there he goes, pulling a Pullman and two 57 feet coaches, a composite and a brake. Oh, well, he was pulling them. He's now not pulling them anymore because he's come uncoupled. Oh well, I think we'll give up on that for now. He was pulling them till the coupling came off. Height issue with the coupling there. The Wren coach has rather high couplings. This is often the problem with these metal simplex couplings. They wander up and down. The Wren coach has high couplings. Whoops, I've still gone backwards. And the coupling on the back of the tender there was a bit low. Well, actually, it looked as if it had been bent down. Maybe I bent it down, I can't remember. But it was definitely on the low side. So they weren't matching height for height, so they were very readily going to come undone. Let's watch them come out of the tunnel there. Okay, we'll catch up with the engine here. And we'll perhaps stop here again. There's my new tree there.